So let's just get this out of the way. Klarna's earnings were not good, and there's three main reasons for that. First of all, we saw less than that 400 million projected for the transaction margin dollars, which is effectively the gross income of the company. And this was a really big metric that we were supposed to be hitting on to show that Klarna is really turning around and becoming profitable into late 2025 into 2026. So the fact that we missed that was very humbling for the company and really showed something for the future of the company. Now, next is the guidance. We were expecting much stronger guidance just for the actual net income of the company. This suggests net income, in my opinion, around 100 million. I was expecting more like 200 million for the year 2026. It might not even be around there. It might even be flat to negative. It's possible. And this was quite weak, and markets definitely reacted heavily to that. Finally, as we see, the credit losses, which is why actually these missed the transaction margin dollars. The CEO also cited the fact that we're expanding to banking services, which are going to increase those provision for credit losses and the amount that we're going to be recognizing. And in the short term, this is just not going to be what we want to see for Klarna as we enter a unsure phase of what I think is an American cyclical cycle. And that's what I actually want to talk about right here, is that we've actually seen really strong earnings from a firm which is alike to Klarna, but we're going to talk to a moment why it's not completely alike. And they had very, very strong earnings, and they just tanked because of what I believe to be very strong fears around the job market and whether people are going to be keeping their jobs and whether the jobs are going to be able to really expand in America and just in general because of just AI fears, and whether people are going to be saddled with debt, lose their job, and they just not be able to pay their debt back. And I think that's a really strong, big fear with the current lending environment. And I think that's why a lot of these companies in the lending environment have been tanking and moving down, as we have seen. And on the topic of a firm, in relation to Klarna, I want to talk about their product mix and to show why Klarna is actually deciding to move towards this fair financing sector. As we can see, Klarna focuses on those interest-bearing monthly loans, make up 72% of the business, and then 13% is going to be those 0% monthly, and then 15% is going to be those buy now, pay later loans. So they are mostly operating on these loans that are going to be bearing interest, and even the monthly loans without interest. Take Klarna, and they're mostly buy now, pay later. They're sitting at 80% buy now, pay later, 14% debit transactions, and 7% of that buy now, pay later business. Now, why would Klarna want to be moving towards this? Because a firm is operating at a price to earnings ratio of 63, as opposed to like PayPal, which is a transactions company, operating at around a price to earnings of 7.6. And that really shows the nature of a lending company versus a transactions company. Klarna is really more of a transactions company right now because of the fact that they're operating in that buy now, pay later, which in Klarna's case is yielding really low percentages, as the take rate is around 2.76 for the company as of last quarter. Now, this is what I want to say. I think if you don't believe in fair financing, that it would be unwise for you to be a shareholder of Klarna. Of course, this is not investment advice, but this is my opinion. Because if you don't believe in fair financing because you believe the loans are bad or any of those kinds of things, then you just don't believe the vision of where Klarna is going. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just my opinion. And something else that you have to believe in with Klarna, if you want to be, in my opinion, if you want to be holding, is that you have to believe in their scalability. And I think Klarna has really strong scalability, like ridiculously strong scalability. Let's talk about first their operating efficiencies. Of course, they've been trending up recently. And if you take a look at the operating efficiencies, it's quite amazing to see, because if we take a look, we see that the operating, not only have the percent of operating expenses of sales gone down, the actual number of operating expenses in dollars have gone down from 2022 to 2024, which is quite incredible. And as we look to 2025, the amount of efficiency that we're showing is astounding. In 2022, we were looking at operating expenses as percent of revenue at 87.5% of the company's revenues. Then we were looking at 47%, ridiculously stronger. And then now we're looking at 41%. That shows real strength in the scalability of Klarna And it shows that Klarna is really able to expand well, and that the only hindrance that we're finding in actual unit economics were those provision for credit losses and possible increases in banking services that were causing some short-term pressure and those fair financing loans. The fair financing should be uplifting and bringing the company strong revenues and incomes into the future. It's just hard to see that. It's hard to support it when you've been hammered down. I know some people are down 50, 60%, and that's really painful to be seeing. And it's really hard to stick through that as the company continues to print losses in their provisions. But I think in the long term, there's a lot of opportunity with the provision, with the fair financing sector. As much as investors might hate it right now, I think that there's a lot of opportunity as we move towards the better business model of being an Affirm rather than a PayPal. Overall, I didn't get to everything I wanted to today. I didn't have a lot of time today, but I wanted to put something out because I had focused on Klarna so much. But I will be doing updates on other companies as well as Klarna. So if you want to see any more of those, you can click here and you'll be notified. And if you want to click here, you'll see some more of my Klarna videos. Thanks for watching.